love Christmas. I'm a big fan of Christmas. I like seeing people, but there are people who don't, and there are people who have all sorts of anxieties around Christmas. We talked about some of the financial anxieties yesterday, and quite a number of people got in touch about it. And maybe if you're one of them, you can let me know your thoughts. But there are also people who really dread it because they don't like seeing certain people, or they don't like people in general. Maybe they're just not very social people, and that's absolutely fine. It takes all sorts. Lucy Beresford is a psychotherapist and author and joins me now. Lucy, I love Christmas, but I totally get it that there are a lot of people who really don't like it, and they don't like the sort of the pressures of Christmas and the expectations as well.
Yeah, there's a lot around perfectionism. We see so much in, for example, the TV commercials portraying, these perfect Christmas dinners or these perfect scenarios where you're giving gifts to lots of people. And I worry that that only amplifies the loneliness that many people feel if they don't have as many people in their social circle, or they're not expecting to be able to have a really tremendous Christmas dinner. But you also mentioned there what it's like when you go back to perhaps your home environment. There can be a lot of expectations around being the perfect person. And we can often find ourselves regressing, particularly if we're going back into our family network. We can often regress, and not just us, but other people in our family. And all of those childhood dynamics get resurrected. And that can make for a really, really unhappy time. So it's about, do I have permission to do it differently? Do I have permission to say no to certain social invitations? Or do I even have permission to have the Christmas that I want, as opposed to the Christmas that other people expect?
But surely a lot of people say, oh, come on, it's only once a year. You can just put up with it for this amount of time or whatever. Actually, it's really interesting you talk about regression. I remember coming home from university. I think it was my first or second year home from university, and I'd lived in South Africa on my own for six months during my gap year. I'd been surviving at university for 6 months as well. And my mum, I remember my father's mystery female companion telling me to put my coat on. Saying, put your coat on, it's cold outside. I'm going, no, it's not cold, I'll be fine. And this caused a sort of massive argument, perfectly reasonable thing. It's cold, son, I don't want you to be cold. And I was going, no, I'm an independent person, I can not wear my coat, I'll freeze if I want to, kind of thing. And those things, those little things, it really, really annoyed me at the time. I mean, this was over 20 years ago, and I'm still thinking about it in this context of this conversation. And actually, when you do go home, you do somehow go into those old rules, don't you? And it's sort of quite quick, and sometimes there can be a bit, especially if you're not home very often, there can be a bit of a golden period of the first couple of days where everything's sort of marvellous. Oh, you're home, oh, it's all marvellous. And then suddenly it's about the fact you haven't picked up your socks.
Well, you say it's only one day, but of course it isn't. There's a big build-up to it, particularly in the UK. It feels like Christmas starts in August when the mince pies appear on the supermarket shelves. And I too have had those situations where I can remember driving home for Christmas, as they say in the song, and my father being astonished that I'd actually made it on my own. And I was thinking, but I'm 31. I have been able to drive for 15 years.
Yes.
But for other people, those relationship dynamics are actually really quite toxic. And I'm talking about situations where people might need to actively say to themselves, and it's not only 9 days to go, but you still give people enough notice. I don't think I want to put myself through that wheel of fire again. I don't want to be bullied by my siblings or be talked down to by my parents. I want to actually do something different. And I think it's very important that sometimes we're selfish at Christmas, that we don't just think that, the ritual is that it's all about giving and it's all about being selfless, but sometimes you have to project that selflessness to yourself to be able to give yourself the gift of Christmas, which might be peace of mind.
Yes, and I think but that can be a very difficult thing to do, of course, and if you're not necessarily of the presence of mind to say, actually, no, and there'll always be, there are often emollient figures within a family who'll just ring up and say, look, I'll look after you, just can we just get through this, can we just, people who want a quiet life, who will say, can we just do this, it's only once a year, and that is a common theme.
It's only once a year, but it happens every year.
Yeah.
And what I've seen in my clinical work is that a lot of people do put off really enormous conversations in order to keep the peace. Well, I can't say that because it's going to be Christmas. I can't say that because I don't want to spoil things for other people. And a lot of internal suffering happens for others because they're not being authentic and they're not giving voice to how they really feel. But I think I just want to touch on this one other thing, which is about how loneliness can be really crippling.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask you about, because there are a lot of people who really who don't have anyone at Christmas, or don't feel they can join people at Christmas for whatever reason.
That's right. And in a way, my plea to your listeners and your viewers today would be, is there someone in your neighborhood or your community or even in your social circle who you think might benefit maybe from just a message on Christmas Day to let them know that you're thinking of them? You don't have to go the whole way and invite them to a meal, but it's just about those connections, that actually that could be the most precious gift that you give someone of all, and it won't have cost you any money at all.
It's a very, very interesting point. And actually, the point on gifts, we're going to return to this actually next weekend and talk about gifts that that children give teachers. I mean, we're talking a little bit about the economic side of this as well, but I firmly maintain it's not just the thought that counts, it's the amount of thought that counts. And I mean, I saw someone yesterday who I don't see very often, but it's a friend of mine who is works for minimum wage, and we met up and we had a cup of tea and it was all very nice. And he gave me a gift, a really, really nice, thoughtful gift that is perhaps not the most expensive gift I will receive this Christmas. Doesn't matter, but it will be the most meaningful gift, because this is a young person who has just put a lot of thought into that gift and been very, very kind and thoughtful. And as you say, it isn't about the money, is it? It's actually just about the thought and the amount of thought around Christmas time.
Well, I have to say the psychology of gift giving is a whole other topic, which I would love to talk to you about.
Well, tell us about it now.
In the sense, no, I will save it. I'm going to put that under the tree for next week. We can unwrap it then. But I do think that Christmas is a time of such high emotion. When you say to me, oh, it's only one day, I have so many people, for example, who have perhaps been bereaved this year, who perhaps have separated or got divorced, or their life circumstances have changed, and they are facing a Christmas where they're thinking it's going to be so different. I used to host, lunch for 50 people, and now I'm going to be on my own, or I'm all of those rituals, getting the tree with my wife or whatever, and now she's no longer with me. That can be so, so painful for people. So again, when you say it's only one day, those are the moments to actually do say to yourself, yep, you know what? It's only one day. And if I can find something beautiful to do for myself on that day, that's going to be brilliant. And maybe if I could have lunch with someone else 2 days before, that's going to be my Christmas. I'm going to have Christmas on the 23rd of December, or I'm going to have Christmas on the 28th of December. Blended households, for example, really have to think that through. There can be a lot of power battles that go on at Christmas, where someone says, oh no, it's my turn to have the children. We're now divorced, so you can't have the children this time. So how do you make it work for you? If Christmas doesn't happen on the 25th of December, you can make it work for you another day.
And that ritual that you talk about, the importance of ritual, that is a very important psychological thing, isn't it? And actually, but those rituals, as you say, can happen in different ways and on different days. They don't have to happen at exactly the order that they're meant to, or meant to in the loosest form.
Yes, there are no shoulds or oughts in this world, but the idea that you create your own rituals, that actually this is what you do, this is what you did in childhood, and this is maybe what your partner did in childhood. So when you come together, you have to create something that works for the two of you, and you're evolving that. All relationships are evolving, living organisms, I like to feel, and they need to be refined every year. And in a way, Christmas, because it happens every year, and because it happens at the same time on the same date, you can really make those changes to fit your own preferences, and make that make those changes every year so that it really works for you. I'm a big believer that actually you only have one life, and that sometimes if there are things that are damaging or hurtful or toxic for you, particularly around Christmas, this is the year when you get to give that gift to yourself of saying, I'm going to do it differently.
Lucy, thank you very much indeed. That's Lucy Beresford, who's a psychotherapist, author and broadcaster.